Okay, just a quick bit about us. So we're MeasureMinds. We're an analytics specialist agency based near Bristol, which is the largest tech hub outside of London. And we do lots of Google Analytics and GTM and sort of OneTrust setups and implementations. Obviously used to do Google Optimize before it got sort of killed off, and we've also got a bunch of kind of free to use apps such as GTM Cleaner or GTM Grader.ai. But one thing that we're really sort of keen to promote is knowledge share within the community and basically allow people to make the most of these free tools. So these events are really geared to sort of helping everyone understand what cool things you can do and how you can get more value out of Google Analytics and particularly GTM in this case. So I've got Will and Chris and Gabrielle kind of assisting in the background. So with us at MeasureMinds, so we try and sort of give back to sort of charities. So we normally do 5% of profit share every year, and also, as I said, we've got some great free resources. So the GTM developer guide, that's actually publicly available now. I can post a link to it in chat shortly, and that's been updated with J4 kind of references. And also for the event, we try and do a fun fact. So this is a fun fact for me. So that's Steve and my twin brother. That's actually when we did a fun run in Edinburgh. It's called a rat race. It was a great way of seeing the city, and that's kind of, that was probably, must have been maybe at least probably maybe 10 years ago. That's sort of before I got sort of stuck behind a desk in COVID, so I probably look a bit in better shape there. But yeah, if anyone does an adventure race, they're the great ways of sort of exploring and seeing the city. And in my talk, I've got some other kind of adventurous facts that you also sort of hear about. So with that, I'm going to just jump over to my presentation. This is a talk of two parts. So the first bit, I'm going to talk about the future of GTM, kind of doing this one almost in reverse order. And the second part, I'm going to talk about GTM as a game changer. So let's get going. So the first thing, so I'm Google Tag Manager has got crazy market adoption. So it's actually up to like almost 91% if you look at the top million sites. That's absolutely crazy in terms of usage. I mean, the other tag management systems, either paid solutions, have got nowhere near that sort of level. So Google's pretty much dominated the market, almost in the same way in Google search. It's like 90% market share. So it's kind of it's extremely popular and very kind of well used. And you can kind of see this on this graph from when GTM was first introduced down here in around 2017. It's just continued to go upwards and it's pretty much maxed out, as in there's only like 9% left that are not using it. And I think what's also kind of interesting is, aside from the tool growth, the demand for GTM skills has also massively, or gradually at least, increased as people are trying to work out how to use this tool effectively. So Julian from Measure School, he's also got some great resources that he's going to be talking about for improving your GTM skills. But I guess what you also want to know is rates for GTM implementation specialists and GTM developers also increasing, and they are as well. Maybe not at such a high rate. This is kind of UK numbers here, but it's good that there's both a high usage in terms of sites using GTM and a demand for people to implement and set up. So why is GTM so popular? Well, it's made by Google, so it kind of has that sort of kudos or integrations with other systems like Google Ads and DoubleClick or Search Ad 360, etc. It's easy to use, designed for marketers, designed to be avoid technical difficulty or avoid coding. So it's kind of in the same way that if you can use WordPress, you should be able to use GTM. It's designed to be simple. Really powerful. There's some very advanced features with things like outbound click tracking, scroll tracking, marking or tracking particular call to actions, and it's just great if you're trying to work out how well a site is doing or how well particular elements of a site are working. And also, there's a really active community of Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics specialists, and things like Measure Slack, which also there's some great talks happening on there. Also, the Google Product Forum. So for my sins, I used to be quite active on the Google Analytics product forums. I think I answered like 10,000 questions or something over the time, and I think for me, that was a really good way of learning how the tool works by answering other people's questions. That's a feature that some of the other tag management systems don't necessarily have. They can't tap into that free community. And the benefits of the size of that community are the same with like WordPress plugins. People kind of build great plugins and support those. And also GTM empowers the marketing department to get stuff done without having to wait for IT and be really agile and quick moving, especially when you've got things like Black Friday and you need to be responsive and capitalize on user demand and campaign tweaks and updates. And obviously, no-brainer one, it's free, or at least there is a free version of it, which, to be honest, most of the features in GTM are in the free version. There's only a couple of features that are not in the free version, so that's also explains that adoption. The other thing I would say, from a survey that was done of marketers a little while ago in terms of why they use a tag management system, and why kind of GTM was loved so much, and I should probably point out why maybe GA4 is not loved so much, is that it's really easy to use, helps you with agility and control of managing your tags, monitoring releases, and being able to kind of move forward or roll back if there's an issue. It allows you to turn on remarketing or dynamic remarketing and recapture your audience if they've like added to cart but not purchased, and recapture them with the offer of what they're interested in. Also reduces deployment costs because the developer can focus on building the website or app, and then the marketing team can take care of the implementation bit. Also allows you to improve site speed by pausing tags that you don't need to have active or making sure everything is asynchronous, and also allows you to control that privacy piece, and more recently allows you to enable modeling, and if someone opts out of tracking, allows you to send a compliant cookieless pixel to upscale your conversions, and that can be sometimes between 15 and 20% of conversions. There is a little bit of skepticism or notes about whether cookieless pixels are compliant, but Google have at least, and maybe Joby can explain more on that. Google have introduced a mechanism within GTM to add tags in the fixed categories that they recommend, and also in the last couple of days, there's the 2 new categories for consent mode v2, which GTM also supports. And also it helps you deploy A/B testing tags like what used to be Google Optimize, or A/B Tasty, or Visual Website Optimizer, etc. So it's really a great tool for marketers. It's an essential piece of being able to get stuff done. And also the key thing is that it's really useful for small sites, but it's also equally really useful for big sites. So Google have done a fantastic job of making a tool that fits both sides, which is not an easy thing to do. And also there's non-Google tags that GTM supports. So unlike GTag, which is only a Google thing, and I'd suggest you don't use GTag, it's more of a basic solution. You can't do as much advanced stuff within it, and there's some other issues with it that also need to be corrected. So And also Google Tag Manager has these automatic things for improving your data collection. So let's say if you want to do a PDF download, a tracking of that, you do a link click listener, or if it's a form submit tracking, you can enable that. Obviously in Google Analytics 4, the form submit tracking is a little bit fragile. It sometimes over reports or picks up a site search as a form submit when it's not actually a form submit. So actually GTM's got a kind of better solution there, and it's more easier to customize. And the same with scroll tracking. If you wanted to do a scroll to end and after 15 seconds, you've got a more advanced or better solution for that. So generally, I'd suggest if someone asks you if you're going to pick a GTM or GTAG, always say GTM, please, and because of the power and flexibility in terms of customizing these improved or advanced or enhanced events. The other thing is GTM allows these cookie control settings and compliance within GDPR or similar, and potentially a 20% uplift from modeling of opt-out users and conversions. Here's an example of modeling. And also a bit like kind of almost like WordPress hosted or WordPress auto updated apps, GTM natively updates some of its tag libraries. So for example, the change from GA4 to GTAG, that all happened behind the scenes. So users didn't need to do anything or press anything. Google just did it for you. So it means that the code within those native tags is always potentially kind of up to date. There are community tags as well. So for example, Facebook is in the community list of tags. Those ones do need to be manually updated, but at least they mean that you can expand out to add tags that are easy to edit without needing to use custom HTML. So again, that's Google trying to open up to the community and make the tool easier to use and avoid custom coding. I mean, personally, it'd be nice if they had an auto update on manual GTM tags, but yeah, it's basically a good facilitator for to basically keep your site up to date and future proofed. And in the subject of future proofing, Google has introduced GTM server side, which Mary's going to be doing a talk about later, and that potentially can also increase your counter conversions, and you can also potentially strip off IP addresses, just do country lookups, and also enable things like Facebook conversion API and do hybrid mode where you send the client side or the server side as a pixel and basically get more conversions counted, and as well as improving site speed at the same time. So I would say GTM server side is you're starting to move into developer land with that, but again, it's great that it's a free tool to use, and the cost of hosting of GTM server side is very, very cheap. So again, Google's just trying to give analysts and developers tools to improve the marketing, so they hope that they spend more on Google Ads. So that's great. Or they make sure that remarketing tags are active, and sort of cookie buckets and attributes of users is sent. So if Google introduces some magic machine learning remarketing lists or improvements to performance max, etc., then the data's there for it to be able to make those decisions on. So GTM and GTM server side are really just core pieces to enable a robust first-party data collection. And that GTM server side here, we've got 5 tags which are all consolidated here into just one tag, which is basically going to improve site speed because you only need to load one thing, not 5 things. However, Google Tag Manager itself, on the client side, it has slowed in terms of the new features that are being added. There was, rapid feature releases, and then it's not been quite as rapid recently. There are some features I wish Google would introduce, like HTML5 video automatic tracking and sort of geolocation API listeners. I'm hoping they may in the future add those, but for the moment we can still use custom JavaScript to account for any kind of missing listeners. On the good side, though, there are new features being added in GTM server side, and that seems to be more of where the focus is moving here, with 13 changes or features in last year. So looking into a crystal ball, what do I think Google is going to add into Google Analytics or GTM server side, or is just Google Ads in general? Well, the first thing, it's kind of both a request and also an annoyance. I wish Google would talk to Google. So the problem is the Google Ads side and the Google Tag Manager and the Google Analytics 4 side, all of them are different departments. All of them are different tools built at different times, and they don't really work or integrate nicely between each other. You have to jump around to go and get a Google Analytics 4 account ID, put it into GTM. There's not like a native linking between GTM and Google Analytics 4. There are some legacy linking tools with the DoubleClick and GTM, but they're really very basic integrations. The good news is that on the GA4 side, there is kind of Audience Manager, and Audience is created in Google Analytics 4 and Google Ads now are kind of in sync, so that we're starting to see some closer integrations between those tools, but it's still not as easy to use, especially for a beginner, they've got to jump around between lots of different screens, and that's something I wish Google would hopefully improve this year. The next one is user ID and email hash. Now, this is definitely going to become increasingly more important as Apple makes sort of cookies more difficult to set or shortens cookie durations. So Google needs a countermeasure to re-identify a user or to link a click to a user. So a user ID being the recommended method. So that's an ID that you would set if you log in. And an email hash would be your email address converted into like a gobbledygook character, and then Google or Facebook then use that to identify you and attach like clicks and conversions to that instead. The other one, which I expect is going to be increasingly used or expanded out, is server-to-server integration. So here we've got the Google Data Manager, and we've got linkings here between let's say BigQuery and Salesforce, or Salesforce and Google Analytics 4, which is now there's a sort of free integration there. The same will also apply for linking between like CMS platforms and Google Analytics, or CMS platforms and Google Ads. So this server-to-server thing, the great thing about server-to-server is that it's close to 100% of tracking. You can't get an interrupt like the browser, like Apple or Safari, stopping a pixel being sent. And also things like offline events like a refund could also be pushed in, so you get this kind of closer to real kind of data. And there's a nice kind of a wall around that which stops Apple kind of blocking those. In GTM server side, you would still need to send 1 pixel from the client to the browser, so it's not a bulletproof solution, but that's more where things seem to be heading in that kind of direction. And the other thing, as I mentioned a second ago, is cookies are slowly going to get eaten by Apple. As it promotes its kind of pro-privacy stand, shortens these cookie durations to 7 days if it's come from a marketing link, or in private mode, stripping off Google Click IDs or Facebook Click IDs or other identifiers. And more worryingly, I mean, at the moment in private mode is not generally used as often, but it's now more easy to accidentally click on in private mode in Safari, and this is a kind of a worrying trend, because obviously if Apple stops Google Tag Manager from loading, that's going to stop Google Analytics 4 and Facebook and everything else from running as well. To give you an example here, I opened the New York Times website, clicked on the privacy report here in the bottom corner, and I expanded out to see what Apple was blocking, and no surprise here, that GTM was right at the top of the list. So this is a big problem, and this is why potentially there's going to be a much rapider adoption of GTM server-side, is to try and get around that heuristic detection of or pattern matching of GoogleTagManager.com, and trying to avoid this automatic sort of block on the host name or JavaScript file. Although maybe this is a prediction, maybe Google and Apple, given that Google pays Apple 36% of revenue, which is like $26 billion. Maybe if they increased that percentage up from 36% up to 50%, maybe 50-50. Obviously, this is the default search engine, and someone doing a search on mobile would then go to Google rather than Bing, etc. And Google's had a deal with Apple for quite a long time regarding the rev share on that. So maybe if it went to 50%, Google tracking might not be blocked. They might be best buddies again. Hopefully, cross fingers. That was probably an extra a few extra billion cost on there. But maybe if that happened, maybe Google wouldn't be blocked on Safari. Maybe that's Apple's kind of stealth strategy to stop conversions being sent, which affects Google Ads and bidding, and force Google to increase the amount it pays per year for search or default search engine. Maybe if that happened, something else might be blocked instead. Maybe Facebook would suddenly be blocked more often, and the same with Bing ads and TikTok ads and Twitter if anyone actually advertised on it. That's something, just a possible consideration. I mean, Google has paid Ad Blocker Plus in the past to not block certain remarketing tags. So this is along the similar kind of lines. And as I mentioned, expect more client-side to server-side setups and migrations, and closer, more data being sent in, and ideally data append happening. So for instance, just keys of transaction ID, user ID, page ID being sent in the browser, and that data then being looked up or appended to on the server. So it's kind of more compressed but potentially more enriched. The other thing for Google is I can see a shift in focus looking back in time. So here, when Google bought Urchin and Google Analytics a long time ago, and then the sort of mapping feature, more recently, it's all been focusing on Google Cloud and GCP here, with all these acquisitions that are happening. So that's probably because Google Ads revenue may have kind of capped out. So it's more logical to focus on monetizing that data. And also it's expensive to host data, so I can understand that need or premise, and also a need to increase revenues, which have jumped over the last couple of years sort of here. So that the same with Azure and other kind of cloud providers. There's big money potentially to be made from the hosting side and running queries on that data, doing data manipulation, data mining, and machine intelligence, and etc. So the good news is that that data collection piece is going to make it possible to do some really clever stuff with the data that's being sent in. The bad news is you're starting to need to pay for that, and also kind of change to things like unsampled data, even in GA4 standard reporting, where previously it might be unsampled and suddenly it becomes sampled. There's this possible kind of push to having to pay for better quality data, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I kind of see that Google's obviously got to make profit somehow. So that's possibly a trend that I see increasing or extending. It may even be that you need to spend a certain amount on Google Ads to get Google Analytics for free. That's another thing that might happen in the future. We'll see. So that's my look into the crystal ball. And now I'm going to shift gears into Google Tag Manager as a game changer. So I've now got I'm going to go through this in. So I've got 30 minutes now. Yeah, if you do have questions, please make sure you use the Q&A section, and then rather than posting questions in chat, that just makes it easier for us to answer those. Okay, so for the second part of this talk, I'm going to look at the game GTM as a game changer. The examples that I give in here, there's going to be 10 examples, and most of these examples are in our GTM template library. So you can kind of see the inner workings of them. To get access to the GTM template library, if you send an email to analytics at, Will, if you could, or Chris, if you just put that email into chat, and just put the title of it, just say, please add me to GTM template library, and then we'll add you with read-only access to that list. You can download the library if you don't want to be added, but it's just not necessary as a fresher kind of list. I'll put the link to download that into chat. On the GTM Grader.ai tool, at the very footer of that tool, you'll notice a link which points to our library, so you can actually get access to it via that link as well. So GTM as a game changer. Just a really quick bit about myself. So I've been doing Google Analytics GTM for way too long, probably almost over 25 years now. I'm really passionate about this Google Analytics and GTM. Really love learning, finding out everything there is to know about something, and hence I used to love answering questions on forums. A long time ago, I did a session called GTM Ask the Experts on the kind of Google product forums, this was the short recording of that. Maybe I'll even post a link to it afterwards. But the point I just wanted to make is there's nothing that I unfortunately don't know nowadays about GTM. I kind of wish there was new stuff to learn, but I'm happy to share the link to the GTM template, the GTM book, which I'll just put into chat for you to kind of learn from that list. Oops, or Will, if you put it into chat. And to give you an indication of how much projects I've worked on and the team, there's a lot over that 10 to 15 plus years since GTM was introduced. And so when I thought through those projects, I was trying to isolate or identify what's the one thing that made a real difference to a client when using GTM. What was the killer game changer feature or use of a feature that meant the client had like a massive impact or an immediate result, or just something that really kind of made a difference for them. And it was quite difficult trying to consolidate and think about just one thing, because sometimes there's a series of things, but obviously as a takeaway, we want to just focus on one. And that's obviously via GTM client side for the majority of this list. And it was going to be something that just really moved the needle and won the game for the client. So here's that list. I'm just going to give you a second just to look at the list from here. This is kind of a bit like a cheat sheet list. So I'm going to explain what I mean by some of these in a minute. Some of these were big setups and big brands. So the first one here, this is Nat Geo with cross-domain tracking on a subscription site using a special method cross-domain tracking. Tipico matching an external affiliate tracking system to GTM, so that the two are both aligned. And also leveraging an affiliate ID and mapping to UTM ID. Quidco for a e-commerce setup on a voucher site, so it's kind of like pseudo e-commerce but on Angular. Angular's everything's exposed in the browser on Angular, so it's really easy to use in terms of from a GTM point of view, and reusing elements. And then on Schwartz, it's a master container setup, and how you build one container and then propagate that to like 20 other containers. There is also a slightly newer version of that master container, which from another big brand that I can potentially kind of add. I just need probably a bit more time to sort of anonymize that one, and I'll put it in the library. and then we did one here for a university site where it was about using GTM to add SEO markup, particularly for courses, and that resulted in a bump in traffic, and improved organic click-through rate on Google search. So it was a key outcome, not just tracking, but actually more traffic, which is great. NewCross, a shift in metrics. So instead of cost per action, a shift to lifetime customer value, using some clever computations in GTM and values read from the page. And then on a banking site, we've got GTM blacklisting and preventing keystroke logging, making GTM super bulletproof, and avoiding any nasty kind of compliance fines. If you're in insurance or banking, that's potentially quite a good one to be aware of. And then a long time ago, I used to work for a comparison site, and there's a couple of cool hacks that we did for that to improve outbound clicks and performance tracking. And then I've got one here from a Google Ads one from a site called FairExhange, where we used a method of reading that GCL ID into the UTM ID. It's a little bit similar to what was done here. And also using caller line IDs to get a massive refund out of Google by doing some kind of data clustering of GCL IDs and like phone numbers. And the last one, we've just got a finance example of how you'd send data using a Google Sheet if Google Sheets is blocked, and thus it sends as Excel. So there's quite a few in that list, so I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. There are case studies for each of the or most of the examples here, so there's more details on each one. And if you look on SlideShare and search for my name, and there's a list of talks I've done at MeasureCamp, and it's got some of those examples on there, or they're in the notes on here. So I'm going to start on the first one, because I'm just checking how we're doing for time, and so I've got 25 minutes. One other thing, just before I start going through this list, I've got a small favor. I'd like to kind of know what is your favorite from this list of tips. Also, this is a chance for you to get access to the slides, which I think you've added the PDF link on the thank you page for those slides on my survey. So yeah, I basically just generally want to know what was helpful for you, what was valuable. So pick your 3 favorites after I show you what the 10 are. And also, as a second question, pick the one that you plan to implement. So there's 2 questions on that. One will say pick 3 favorites, and the second question will say pick one that you're going to do next week or whatever. So answer those 2 questions. That'd be really interesting for me to see, and also I'll consolidate the results and share the survey results afterwards. So let's with that, let's go. Just as another little fun fact, this was when I did a Bath half marathon in a sumo suit to raise money for charity a long time ago, and that video somehow managed to get 50,000 impressions. There you go. So let's go. Whoops. For Nat Geo, this one was quite a little while ago when I did this sort of project, but it was a big problem but a simple solution, which was that they had their payment cart was on a different domain to the main site. So when users were traversing from the www over to similar to like PayPal or hosted PayPal, cookies were getting lost, and they end up with a split session, and revenue was attached to the land, not where the transaction was happening. So basically the data in Google Analytics was pretty not usable at all, because what you want to know is which campaigns are sending or generating revenue, and campaign sources and keywords, etc. So a standard cross-domain tracking which appends the kind of cookie values on the link didn't work, and also when we tried using a hash parameter rather than a question mark or ampersand, that also didn't work. However, the redirect that was happening on the kind of pass through to the payment portal, it did retain the cross-domain value which was added into link, it just didn't add it in the right place where Google Analytics was looking to read it from. So it was actually stored in the referral path. So what we did here is this the referral, and just read the cross-domain cookie. This is the GA3 example here. On GA4 it's called a GL. Read that from the referral document referrer, send that into Google Analytics 3 in this case, but it's pretty much the same process for Google Analytics 4 as a client ID. And that then meant the sessions were stitched together. And then we then got that revenue tracking and by source, medium, etc. So and the great thing was that the developers didn't need to do anything to activate this particular method. It was all done within GTM. So a key kind of win for them. And I should note that it was not possible to change the redirect either. So sometimes redirects can be edited to pass query parameters, but they require developers to make a change, which was not possible, or was very, very slow to happen. So the next example was a site that does, which is a big affiliate site. It's called Tipico. So they had an external affiliate tracking system. So they have lots of up to 1,000 affiliates that send traffic to them. And it's using like an affiliate ID, a bit like an AWIN ID. The problem is Google Analytics doesn't, out of the box, know that affiliate ID. What was happening was all of the source and medium data, which should have been moved into affiliate, was reporting as either a referral from the affiliate or as direct. So basically, the data in Google Analytics 3 or in Google Analytics 4, both affected, was utterly useless. So again, it was a really simple fix to just change that mapping ID. Now, it did mean changing the page location or changing the UTM campaign underscore ID to tell GTM to then tell Google Analytics 4 use this parameter affiliate ID, and if you detect it, set the source to be affiliate.com or the referral host name, and then a medium of affiliates. But that one thing then meant the data in Google Analytics 4 was usable for source, medium, campaign, and also it more closely aligned to their affiliate tracking system. There's some other pieces that were done within that as well, but as in we actually end up reworking the whole client-side attribution model in GA3, but that's for a different talk for later. But you're welcome to look at the code example and the GTM template library if you look for affiliate, and it'll say basic example and an advanced example. This is more from the advanced example. So the good thing about this is you don't then need to go off to the affiliates and ask them to change or add UTM tracking tags. You're just repurposing what's happening and just almost reworking it as it comes in the browser. There are some slightly newer solutions or ways of doing this actually on the redirect now, with tools such as uplifter.ai, etc. But this was a client-side JavaScript-based solution. So the key outcome was no need to ask 1,000 affiliates to retag, no IT involvement at all, and the data became usable, actionable. Great, awesome win, great game changer. The next one, this was from the cashback site, or also a kind of affiliate site, and it was about mapping the estimated revenue from an outbound affiliate click to work out how much money and also volume of out clicks were being made and also sent to particular retailers. So this was an Angular website. So Angular is a client-side code, so all in JavaScript. So here's an example. So this is Hotel Chocolat, and it's like 4% cash back for the user if they buy it via this link. So that money gets sent to the user, and then maybe 1% of that gets sent to sort of Quidco to cover their fees and costs, etc. So it was working out what that percentage is that Quidco make, and then taking the volume of outclicks for that particular outbound the kind of retailer, and that then gave a kind of a pseudo e-commerce metric, like revenue per outclick, which again changed the way that they looked at the data and decisions they made about which offers to push, like along the header of the site, or which offers were also the most popular for users. So here's some of that example code. So at the end of a React site, normally there's a variable that sets all the elements in the page. It's just about reading that variable and mapping it into a GTM data layer push. So this one here, we're actually mapping in the same nesting as the inline kind of variable logic. So just to kind of know that where it maps to. Obviously in Google Analytics 4 for e-commerce, you have to send particular names of stuff for that to be digested properly and flow into the right e-commerce reports. But again, the key thing here was no inline changes needed. We could just piggyback what was already there. And that gives this kind of pseudo e-commerce output of product, average order value, etc. Cool. Another example was from a global rollout. So this is where instead of maintaining one GTM account, maintaining 20 individual GTM accounts, they were consolidated into one master container. So it meant if a new tag needed to be deployed everywhere, it was very quick and easy to do so. And this meant avoiding the need to use GTM zones, as in a free solution, and also made it really quick and easy to add a new tag, such as either Facebook or Bing or whatever, because it was baked into the template. So once that's set up, it's really great for like adding and moving quickly. And it meant when a new country rolled out, everything was pre-set up. So that's important when you've got lots of brands, lots of countries, lots of sites. How this one worked was that the template was set up, some tweaks and refinements to it, especially that in the first country to begin with, some slight refactoring, and then it was pushed out to all markets in overwrite mode. The logic was fairly simple. It was just about working out a brand and a country, and then looking up that key to return an output, either a GA3 or GA4 account ID or a Facebook or Bing account ID. So here we've got a list of example account IDs here. So we've got Google Ads, Facebook, Yahoo, DoubleClick, etc. So that meant just maintaining one solution everywhere, and we've used this same method on a bunch of kind of big global rollouts and deployments. It is also possible to have a GTM zones account that's not a GTM zone, as you can actually inject GTM within GTM as one other way of doing it, which is actually slightly better because you don't hit some issues with the GTM server side, which doesn't really support zones. But yeah, this was a great solution for standardizing setup and improving deployment speed and data quality. Another one here. So this was the Bristol University example with SEO markup. This one was kind of interesting in the sense that the markup here, SEO markup or JSON-LD, is JavaScript based. GTM being a JavaScript tool, it means that we can potentially add this markup, then Googlebot understands it, and it shows a picture on the Google search results of a picture of a course, or reviews about a course, or just makes it really more enticing for a user to click on the search result. So it improves organic CTR, more organic clicks, and also like even a picture of the course or something. So really stands out. Great win to activate and enable it. Also on courses, you can even add the price of a course, so that makes that even more interesting, and almost like pre-qualifies a user when they click on the link. It's awesome that GTM can activate this. This particular one, so with this is an example from Sitecore, there's an ID within Sitecore, which is a page ID. So rather than trying to map elements in the page to the the SEO markup. Instead, the ID was called via a kind of a REST request or a sort of a browser request, and that returned a table, and that table was then converted into a kind of necessary output. So there's now tools like, there's a thing called Google Firestore which does a similar sort of thing, but this was just there's a solution for if you're on Sitecore, there's ways of doing it on there. So that meant they in effect could append the extra data about these product pages or courses without needing to edit the CMS platform, and it meant it kind of auto-maintained because this third-party database was baked into Sitecore. So that was a great win and a massive boost in terms of organic traffic when that was activated. I may have to go into because I'm on number 6 of 10, so I'm probably going to have to use the question time for the rest of this talk. This was a recruitment site, and it was instead of bidding based off CPA bidding, it was like being a bit clever about the value of a possible conversion. So this was taking a average salary rate, which is obviously on any job site, it will put the rate per hour or per day or etc. Working out if it was full-time or part-time, and then adding some kind of adjustments based off if it was a skilled or unskilled or particular kind of job categories, and then estimates for how long a user would be kind of active for a year and a half, whatever, and that gave this kind of a rough long-term customer value based off some assumptions about margins, etc. So again, a shift away from a CPA-based model of just one job or almost like product being the same value to focusing on potentially more lucrative or revenue returning values. It's kind of a bit like on e-commerce, the difference between a cheap product like a USB key versus an expensive product like a £1,000 laptop. You'd want to bid differently based off the values, not just a cost per action of sale. So quite a fundamental shift in terms of paid search bidding. And there's more to be done on this, and I should have mentioned a change that I'm seeing for Google shifting to bidding on new customers and lifetime customer value bidding rather than just the initial kind of sale. But this is an example from recruitment based off that LTV estimate. The other one here was a banking example. So this is more for the logging pages of login pages of banking sites, and it's more of a safeguard. Obviously, in most cases, so Google Tag Manager, rather annoyingly, it doesn't default to enabling two-step authentication or enhanced security when you create an account. It's always good to just go into account settings and toggle that box on. You do need to make sure you've got the Google app kind of installed or turned on, or you've got the SMS code activated. So that's just before even going into this example here. But the other example is because it's JavaScript based, or because it's a tool that can be used to inject potentially sort of malicious code, you do need to make sure it is locked down. So that's where we would normally suggest creating a live account and a development account and making sure live is very restricted. In this case, though, there was an example of a JavaScript tool, not actually anything to do with GTM. It was just a live chat tool, but it was added via JavaScript on Ticketmaster, and the hosting of this particular tool on AWS got unfortunately hacked into, and then some JavaScript code was added into this external tool, which then did keystroke logging on a payment page on Ticketmaster. Obviously, that's not good. You can enable an additional level of a thing called a content security policy, which adds an extra level of protection. But there's another thing you can do here within GTM to make sure that, particularly on login pages or payment portal pages, you basically make GTM benign or kind of almost like safe mode on those pages. So if ever GTM was used as an attack vector, it can't do any harm. So the method here is listing all of those kind of login pages, and then activating GTM blacklisting of custom HTML and in this case community sandbox templates. By doing that change, it then makes GTM run only in template mode, which means that you can't add any arbitrary JavaScript, and basically it makes it bulletproof. So this only applies on insurance and banking sites, but it's just in those sectors, obviously privacy and security is key. So a useful thing, if you're not aware of this technique, it might be possibly a game changer. So hence mentioning it for those particular verticals. One thing to note just about this method is that the Facebook tag, annoyingly, is a community template rather than a native template. So that does get blocked by this method, unfortunately. So you have to use a little workaround to send a custom image instead for the Facebook page on those login pages, but otherwise it works fine. Here's the example of that, just workaround. So number 8 on the list is this was a long time ago when I worked in Google Ads for a site called CompareAndSave. They're similar to, or got bought by creditcards.com, spending a lot of money on paid search. And there was kind of quite a clever little trick, almost like early stage personalization, or using the data that you've got from the site that's referred to improve results. So here, this was when the position of the ad was exposed when someone clicked through from Google search results, and here it would be position 3. And it meant if you knew the position of the ad, you know the position of the mouse. So if you know the position of the mouse, you could then move the call to action buttons to land to be in the same position. So what happened is when the user clicked from Google search, they landed on a page with the exact call to action perfectly positioned. So in this case, there was a credit card which was clickable, or the headline which was also clickable, and also the offer was exactly around that point. So rather than if it was a click from the right hand side, the mouse would land like in a different kind of place. So using that position meant that those pages were tailored slightly or personalized based off that additional info. A similar thing can also be done if someone comes from a link from Facebook and you make the Facebook login button more prominent because you know that they've got a Facebook account. Same sort of premise. This site also, outbound click tracking was also extremely useful as a sort of feature. So just an example here of, again, using something in the browser, using GTM to read that and then manipulate something on the page. I know we've got a talk later about adding banners and on-the-fly kind of call to actions and stuff. That's the same sort of style of approach, just using what you've got to get users to do the thing you want them to do. Unfortunately, Google have made the document referrer less useful now. It just says google.com. It doesn't have any parameters, doesn't even have the keyword or position. So unfortunately, you can't use that method anymore. The last but one tip was a site that was doing work kind of similar to Uber, and they were buying a lot of mobile paid search clicks and phone calls. So this was a little kind of tip. So the problem with the Google Click ID in Google Analytics, at least in the web interface, is you don't get that GCL ID exposed. So if you're trying to do an Explorer report or a secondary dimension, you can't actually see it. So it's quite helpful to store it in the UTM ID field as almost both as a backup and also to then sessionize based off a click ID, because then you can do a grouping of potentially a client ID and the click ID to see if the same person has clicked on the same ad twice, and a dimension of cost to see if you've been charged for that click. So it's kind of almost like using Google Analytics to debug Google Ads or to use Google against itself, which is kind of ironic. But in this case, we used the phone number to cluster based off the phone number, and we could prove that a particular user was, in this case, competitors were clicking on the ad multiple times and being overcharged. So we got a 10K refund for the client in this case. So the two ways we did it were, one, using the UTM ID and mapping to campaign ID, and here with the GCL ID, and then the second one was which is exposed in Explorer reports here as the campaign ID, and the second one was doing this clustering of a caller line ID, seeing if the calls were very short and if there were multiple calls, etc. So and here's the refund. So I've shared the link to that template there. The last one was just a finance site where, unfortunately, Google Sheets was blocked. So we added a script that sent the sheet on the first thing on every Monday morning, and it allowed them then to get that Google Analytics 3 or Google Analytics 4 data, even though they couldn't access Google Sheets. So quite a useful solution for them. So from those list of examples I've given, the common theme is, you'll notice they're all don't require developer involvement. They're all done via GTM, maybe in some cases with custom HTML. So it's basically using GTM as a key tool to allow or generate change. So please, if you can fill in the feedback form and let me know which your favorite was. I'm really curious and interested to know.